Hello everyone and welcome to Blue Tengu's live game development show. Got Gas in the room with me right at the moment, but today I'm going to jump right into it. Jump over to the desktop here. Today going to try and do some of the landing stuff to make it a little more obvious for landing and takeoff that you're supposed to be able to do that. And Cirrus drops by. Hey Cirrus, hope things are going well for you. As I was just saying, the landing and takeoff, I think right now, we used to have an effect on the beach that made it look like you could land and take off, but that's maybe a little too subtle. Maybe need to do a little more UI with it. It's going to be a tough balance though, because if it's too gamey, then it kind of ruins the atmosphere. But if it's not gamey enough, then players will misinterpret it. So I'll probably need your guys' help guiding me on this one. In overtime since last week, I did manage to get a few things done, like the player ground movement brush up. I finally did manage to get around to that. What that is basically making it so that the player, when you're moving the mouse around, like a lot, so the player doesn't just like whip around the screen, because that's obviously artificial. The player's supposed to be, on the ground walking, so they shouldn't be just like moving and floating all over the place. So fix that, and that was because we did the animations last week. Those kind of rough ones kind of helped me nudge me into doing that. Also, the network stuff, only log in the player when starting the game rather than from the title screen. So did that. So that's more similar to what we did with Project Spaghetti, except Project Spaghetti had only one mode that was Twitch supported. This one, the whole game, you can accept Twitch commands. The flying movement tutorial getting skipped, fixed that. The problem was when you're taking off from the ground, it counted that as movement, so it assumed that you had already moved, which was no good. And fading out of the tutorial sequence too fast. So some pretty easy bugs that we squashed there. This is the beach. Obviously, at the moment, if you don't know any better, you don't know that you can do anything at this beach, versus here. For example, like, why would I be able to left click here and have something happen when I can't left click here and have something happen? So we do need to make it obvious, but we don't want to just have like a mouse icon showing up, because that's a little in your face, and if it shows up every time, that's kind of annoying as well. So probably do need some sort of icon. But let's take a screenshot. Move it over here. Paintbrush it. Grab that screenshot. So that's one version that we have to worry about. Desktop. Skyring takeoff. The other version that we have to worry about is this one. So when the player's like this, they can also take off. Okay, so these are our two situations where we need something to indicate to the player you can do something with the mouse button here or the controller. So you can perform an action at this moment because you are low enough over the beach to land, or you're on the ground and on a beach and you can take off. So like, for example, you can do cheesy things, like you can do just a simple like, let's get something decent going. Why is it not filling? There we go. I mean, you can obviously do something like that. This would be the heavy-handed approach. You could do just a giant arrow that says like that, but probably has to be more subtle than that. Has to also fit into the game atmosphere a little more than that. So probably need like some sort of semi-transparent thing. Triangles, like it'd have to be semi-transparent triangles, like something like, an animated set of triangles. It looks like a Christmas tree. But like a set of animated triangles like you normally see with like teleporting and warp things and stuff like that. You can also do circles, for example. You could also do Let's get rid of those. For these we don't want to fill. Imagine these are semi-transparent. You could do something like that where these circles are going up. Let's move it over. Make sure it's more or less balanced. Okay. There we go. So bottom ring. Now in terms of animating this, I guess they're just going to keep shrinking as they go up. What's the best way to do this? Because I could do all of that inside of Photoshop, or I could transform the sprites programmatically inside of GameMaker. Probably the only way I can pull it off is to do it inside of GameMaker, because otherwise I'd be sitting here forever like resizing circles and stuff. So I'd have one sprite for each circle. It's a pretty inefficient way to do it though. Have one sprite for each circle and then have it move up and shrink basically. And then just keep calling more sprites so that you have like 3 or 4 going at the same time. It's inefficient, but there's only 3 or 4 sprites, so it shouldn't be too bad. So that might actually be okay to do this. That'd be awesome if I could actually just get away with this. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. Save as. Fine. Save as. Okay. Tutorial. I guess it would be kind of a tutorial thing. Let's create it in here. Sprite. Let's take off landing ring. Okay, take off landing ring. Load that sprite and edit. And we don't need all this extra room, so transform, resize canvas. Something like that. Put that in the middle. Okay. So let's make an object real quick. Yeah, I will put it under player because UI does have kind of a different meaning. Most of my menu stuff is in UI. So obj. Take off landing ring. Grab that sprite. From player, UI, tutorial. Okay. So we basically want this thing to appear and either shrink and go up or shrink and go down depending on which direction we're going. So we probably need a direction variable. Yes, I do. Create. And ring direction. So 1 means go down, -1 means go up, because it'll be easy to do the math that way, because in GameMaker the coordinates, the lower y gets, the more up it goes. Because the top starts at 0 and then it goes down. Okay, so step. Move and shrink. So the first thing is to move it. So y equals y plus ring direction. And we can shorten that to this. If y, if abs y, how do we do this? Let's add another one as well. Creates ring distance. Starts at 0, so it starts at wherever this was dropped, and then ring distance is the thing that keeps getting added to. if absolute value of ring distance is greater than whatever we want to set. So let's say 128. So if it's moved 128 pixels, we want to get rid of it. Otherwise, let's see. As it moves, we need to shrink it, so sprite width. Can I change this? I don't think I can change this, so let's not do that. Shrink factor, ring width, sprite width. So ring width minus equals, if it's going to do 128 steps, then maybe minus 0.5. So it shrinks about half as much as it goes up. So if it goes up 2 pixels, it'll shrink by 1 pixel, something like that. And we probably also want to have the ring alpha dropping as well. So start as a factor of 1. This doesn't mean alpha 1. Start as a factor of 1. And drop that as we go. Minus equals 0.0. We've got 128 steps. So 0.025 maybe. 0.03. Nah, 0.02. Because we're going to start with the alpha down a little bit too. In fact, we're going to do that here. Image alpha 0.7. Okay. Now for the drawing step. So draw sprite extended so that we can stretch it and everything else. Sprite index. Draw this sprite. Draw 0 because we only have 1 frame of animation, so that's fine. X, Y plus ring distance to make sure that it's moving. Scale, I guess I could have just done a scale factor. Yeah, that's actually going to be easier. Let's do that. Ring scale. Start at 1. Shrink it down. So yeah. So 1 is the max scale, so let's drop this down by 2 as well. Let's see what it looks like. Serious. Sucks the coding experience from Blue. Yes, you're welcome to it during the weekdays when I can't use it. Wish I could loan it. It'd be nice to help you out with your projects and stuff, if I could, with coding stuff. And this is ring scale. So X is the scale we're changing. Do we want to change the Y scale as well? Yeah, let's change the Y scale as well. No, let's keep that at 1 for now. So the height will never change. It's just the X part that'll change. We'll see how it looks. If it looks weird, we might have to scale the Y as well, because otherwise it's going to get fatter and fatter in the Y direction. It's going to appear to be fatter and fatter. Rotation, we'll just keep that at image angle, so we won't bother changing that. Color, we won't influence the color. It says see white, but that just basically means multiply the sprite's color by white, which just means use the sprite's colors as they are. If you did see black here, for example, then probably all the colors would disappear. Alpha, we've got ring alpha. Okay, that should be okay. So we more or less have what we need. Let's see, if the player's on the ground and they're on the beach, we want to produce one of these things every couple of seconds, basically. Player land is true. Okay, so we need to keep it in here because the player has to be on the ground while they're on a beach. Produce an icon ring so instance creates. We want it to be at the bottom of the player. We want it to start at the player's feet. So, let's see what this looks like. Because I've got this in the middle, but we want it to start down here. So we want y plus sprite height divided by 2 plus sprite height divided by 2. So start at the player's feet. And we want to create that thing that we just made, which is takeoff landing ring. And we don't want to keep doing this. So let's see. Let's go ahead and add a variable in here. I don't want to waste an alarm on this, so ring count. Do it the old-fashioned way. Peel ring count. If peel ring count equals 0, then we'll do this. Else if peel ring count is greater than room speed divided by 2. Might be too many. Then reset peel ring counts. So this helps us avoid an alarm because you only get 12 alarms to work with in GameMaker, so you have to be kind of conservative with them, especially with the player character, because there's so many things that get triggered with the player. You need to keep those options open. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, which is every time we come in this step, we're going to add to a variable, and if the variable gets to half of room speed, in other words, every half a second it's going to create one of these things at the player's X position and down at their feet, and it'll let the landing ring do the rest. One thing we have to be careful of is to make sure that the landing ring is behind the player. Probably. No, in front of the player is actually better because it's semi-transparent anyway. So behind is going to look kind of weird. Depth 20. So we want it to be less than depth 20. So we want maybe depth 10 or so, rather than using the default 0. Let's just go with 15. And should be okay. Ring distance, scale, direction. So 1 means it's going to go down. So if we're on the ground, we want it to go up. Get smaller as it goes up, kind of like a pyramid. So we do need to change that variable real quick. So beach, produce an icon ring. So we need to keep track of this. So we need to switch the direction to -1 to make sure that it's going up. So y is shrinking as time passes. That should be good. And we need to do the opposite for the flying player. So if the player's over a beach and they're low enough in altitude, don't really need to do this, but just to remember it, I'm going to put it in here and comment it out. Should be okay. Let's see what this looks like. For all I know, it could just break the game. Most things I do break the game, so looking forward to that. Oh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Yes! Kind of. Interesting. We had a ring. We had a ring. The other thing is maybe to put it in the middle of the beach tile. I don't know about that, though. Let's see what happens when flying. Yeah, we produced a ring. So I didn't break the game, at least. I just didn't get what I expected. Pale landed is true. I'll bet what is happening is that pale landed is only coming in here once. Pale ring count is 0. Interesting. Let me just see if it's coming in here. More than once. So show debug message. Ring check. And ring creates. Ring reset. Throw out some debug messages and see exactly what's going on behind the scenes here. What should be happening is that I keep getting lots of ring checks with the occasional ring count and ring reset. That's what should be happening if my logic's not broken. Yeah, that is happening. Which is unfortunate in a way, because then it means that. I know what the problem is. It is my logic, because I'm getting ring reset, but I'm not getting ring create again, and I know why. It's the order of the way I'm doing things. Easy thing to fix. The problem is I'm resetting it to 0 and then adding to it, so it never goes back down to 0. It gets set to 0 and then changes to 1 right away, so that the next time it comes through, obviously it fails the 0 check. So I need to do it here. Well, let's see. I could probably put this at the top and save myself a little logic. Else there. Okay. So if I do this, it starts at 0, adds 1, so we're going to skip the first ring worth. So the first half second we're not going to produce anything, which should actually make it look better anyway. It'll get set to 0, produce a ring. If it's greater than half a second, then it'll set it to 0. We've still got the same problem now, because we're doing this there. So I guess we do have to split these ifs out. We don't have a choice. Well, we do kind of have a choice. Change that to 1. Okay, we do actually have a choice. As long as we don't use 0, we're okay. So the first time it comes through, it's going to add 1. Yeah, got a break coming up. Add 1. Create the ring. If it's been half a second, it'll reset it to 0, comes through again, adds 1, hits the check, creates the ring. And because I do want to avoid the first ring, I am going to start it at 1. And I need to add this to player free as well. Okay. Probably could have just added this to player. So ground. Let's copy this code over. Okay. And I don't need the debug messages anymore, since I should be okay. I should be okay. Here we go. The other thing is whether or not it's shrinking right or not. Okay, there we go. It starts a little too high for my tastes. It also looks a little weird that it's not anchored to the player, so we're going to have to think about that. But we also need to stretch it out higher and do a couple of things with it visually, but at least it's working. Let's check the flying version too. The flying version, it is appearing, but you're flying, so it's kind of hard to see. So we'll have to think about something for the flying version. Keeping it centered on the player is something we're going to have to think about, but I do need to take a break. So I will be right back. Thank you for waiting while I took that break. Things aren't going so well for our hero, but as you know, Season 2 should be wrapping up soon, so we'll get to some conclusions. So where we were before the break, we had the rings that we were doing here, the landing icon and stuff like that. We have the rings, but the problem is a couple of problems. Thankfully, taking the break at just the right time kind of cleared my head. One of the problems is obviously the rings are yellow, so they kind of overlap with the beach color. That's no good. The other problem is that they get left behind when the player moves, so it looks a little weird. It's especially going to make it tough to do anything with flying. So it has to be anchored on the player. And I think we can do that. I think we can do that inside of the actual rings themselves. So we just have to, if instance exists, object player. Let's do one more thing. If ring direction equals -1, in other words, they're going up. That's the ground version. If that's the case, then we need object player ground. And we need to update the X position and the Y position to be centered on the player. So object player ground X, object player ground Y. By the way, just your opinion on this. I think Cirrus and Gas, you're both in here. What do you think of actually the ring concept in general? Does it fit the game, or do you think it needs to be something else? And this one's free, so this one's the flying version. And the reason I'm doing this extra check is because I want to do something like this. Instance destroy. So if the player takes off, then I want to get rid of the rings as soon as possible. Same with landing, because otherwise they'll be kind of distracting. Let's see, is there anything else? Ring directions, that. I guess if there is no ring direction, we might as well destroy it. This would be kind of a fail anyway. Let's go as greater than 0, less than 0. And just hope we don't ever make that mistake. And okay, yes to the rings, like the concept. Nice. Yeah, serious. How is the animated show, by the way? I should ask you. You've seen it. You've been watching it every week. Is it entertaining, I should say? Is it actually an interesting thing covering my break, or is it kind of like, take it or leave it? Be kind of curious to get your opinion on that. Okay, so now it's centered on the player. And moving off, it disappears fast enough. In fact, the ring does kind of disappear fast enough where we might not have to worry about it too much on takeoff, but We need to change the color, obviously, because yellow's not working, but this is much better centered on the player. Seems to move up really fast, and I think I know why, because I'm changing it to the wrong thing. Remember before, when creating these things, we didn't put it at player Y. We put it somewhere else. We put it at player Y plus sprite height divided by 2, which is why the ring shows up for like a frame and then jumps up to halfway up. So that's one thing we have to do first to get rid of that weirdness. Plus obj player ground sprite height divided by 2. And I kind of want these things to go up further. So we'll make that 196. Shrink it a little slower. Shrink the alpha a little slower as well. And see how this works. I kind of watched the intermission, but I'm lost in the story. Yeah, okay. That's fair enough. Yeah, this season was more kind of a continuous story, so I think what we did with season 1 was a little easier to follow because there were more kind of one-off episodes. There were obviously like continuity things, but this season is more kind of like an overarching RPG-ish kind of story, so. Okay, so that's pretty good. Okay, that's interesting. The fact is the player's touching 2 beach tiles at the same time. So that's kind of interesting because what happens is it doubles the speed of those rings. I thought your character was a little bigger than it used to be. I assume you mean this character here, right? In Skyring or the other one? In the intermission. One reason the character is not as big is because probably the resolution's smaller than it was before. I can fix that. In fact, I probably should. This one, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's probably the resolution's smaller than it was before, because I had a bigger window before taking up more of the screen. Let's see, what can we do about the double hex problem? It's not a huge problem, but object player ground. Oh, whoops, copied the wrong thing in. Object player free. Okay. So we need to do something here. What we could do, I guess, is move PL ring count to step. That seems like such a waste, though. Let's just add another variable. So PL ring step, set it to false by default. And what we're going to do is make sure that we don't double the rings if you're like overlapping multiple hex tiles. So if PL ring step is not true, then we'll produce a ring. And we'll set it to true once we do that. Same with this. Okay, That should get rid of the doubling problem. Let's change the color real quick, because yellow is not working against the beach. Let's see, transform. Can I do a transform image, colorize? Nice, there we go. Let's look at colors. Green might be okay. Blue's gonna be hard to see. Purple's okay. Red's simple. But red's kind of a danger color, so it's probably not a good idea. Red usually means you can't do something, or it's a danger color, so it's better to use a green color, which is more like a go or a positive or an action color. So let's do that. Okay. That should stand out against the beach more and make it obviously that you can do an action. And I'll go ahead and change the resolution too, because might as well. I've got all this extra screen real estate. Might as well use it. So options, resolution, jump it up. That would take too much. Let's go with that for now. Okay. I'm never setting it to false. There's a problem. So, let's see, we have to do that in the begin step. Ring step. Let's put this inside of player. And begin step, we'll set it to false. Okay. That should help. Make it every color, all 16.8 million of them. There we go. Yeah, like an old school, like video game, like when they did like the sparkling thing when they were shifting colors really rapidly. I can think of one example off the top of my head. I'll have to see if I can find it though. Still not working. Let's try flying real quick. What am I doing wrong? Step, beach. If PL ring step is not true, if it's false, then we come in here and set it to true. In begin step, it should be being set to false. Yes. PL, am I naming my variables differently? Yes, I am. Okay, that's why. PL ring step, okay. That should do it. That's one thing about scripting languages versus like solid programming languages like C and C++. With solid programming languages, they're very strict. If you just create a variable out of nowhere, well, if you start using a variable out of nowhere, they're going to say it's not defined and give you an error, so you figure out things are going wrong right away with the scripting language because it's giving you more flexibility. The problem is you can just use variables out of nowhere, and it doesn't seem to care very much. So you can mistype and create variables on the fly. Happens in VBA a lot. This should work. There we go. Okay, we've got our green color. Could probably even go higher, to be honest. It's okay on the ground. Let's see what it looks like in the air. The air looks odd. The air looks odd. Not to mention the fact that rotation makes it look really weird. Should We need to change the image angle to be the player's image angle. Okay, the fact that the rings are stretched makes them look a little weird, but is it matching the player? Yeah, it's kind of matching the player, but as you rotate around, obviously it's fixing the angle. So I should probably, in the create step, also make it take the player angle as well. Then we can get rid of that weird flashy thing. But for the most part, it's working. One problem is direction. Because direction's using the game room's Y, which means that it's going to go off in weird directions. Yeah, let's fix one problem at a time here. Let's skip the angle stuff for now, because it's going to take me a while to remember how to do that stuff. And let's move on to a different task. So let's actually just make that a bug. Player bug player rings. Don't rotate with the view. And I have to use all that length dir stuff. Okay, just so I remember that I have to do this, because otherwise it's going to look really weird. Massages blues brain. Thank you. I need a brain massage. Need one really bad. Okay, so we do have land and takeoff icon. That's done. We need to update the graphics a little bit on it. So let's add a brush up task. Land takeoff icon brush up, because I stretched it out so it looks really weird right now. Polish graphics. Okay. And let's move on to the landing effect. So when the player actually lands on the ground, probably do want some sort of effect so that they're not just like appearing on the ground. But that should be fairly easy to do. Let's head over to, let's see, particle effects. So particle designer. Yeah, you could brush up my brain too. It'd probably be helpful. Okay, test burst. So what do we want to have happen? What would be really cool is if the player lands on the ground and there's like a wind kind of effect, like, you know, kind of like an anime style, like poof. That was extreme. Yeah, I'm not sure why that got triggered. I think I see what's going on. It's kind of interesting that we're doing this because it's actually helping me debug stuff too. Because one thing about it is when the player's flying around at low altitudes, the ground enemies will take off after the player. So it's periodically creating these takeoff points, which is no good if we're going to use particles with them. So we probably want to have something that allows us to decide whether this is the kind of landing point that the player created or the kind of landing point that we're creating every couple of steps. But there's our giant poof of smoke. Probably should make the smoke smaller, more numerous, and spread out. There we go. Poof. Poof. Yeah, now it actually feels like when you take off, poof, you're taking off with like a little bit of an explosion there. Gives a little bit of an oomph to it. Landing because it looks weird at the moment. Hard to judge. Like it seems like with landing, it should only create that particle when you're actually on the ground. So we have to do some fiddling to get the landing thing working. I don't like the visuals of that very much, but we've got our smoke particle, I think, working the way we want it to go. Thank you, Cirrus. So let's sort this so I can find it later. Save and wrap up. We got what we wanted done today. The rotation on those rings is a little weird. We'll have to fiddle with the visuals a little bit and fix that stuff. But we've got our landing effect. So today, we got done what we expected to get done, in addition to a quick bug fix at the beginning. So like in the beginning, if the player skips the boomerang tutorial, problems occur on takeoff. We solved that. That's done. With the landing and takeoff icon, we do have the green rings. Have to fiddle with the visuals a little bit and have to get it rotated properly. But it appears and tells the player that they can perform an action when they're above the beach. We've also got that poof landing effect. In terms of visuals, let's add this in as a bug. Player moves while in the landing process. And we want to fix that, because that makes everything look weird. Okay. So that was episode 46, Managing Death. So thank you for watching our game development show. You can catch past episodes in this one over at youtube.com/BlueTenguStudio. If you're watching this later on YouTube, definitely drop by the live show we do every week on Twitch TV Blue Tengu. The times are Sundays from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Japan, which translates to Saturdays 4 to 6 Pacific Daylight, 5 to 7 Mountain, 6 to 8 Central, 7 to 9 Eastern. If you're in the UK, like Hollow Fire, Gas and Crew, it's going to be midnight. So from Friday to Saturday, that midnight there, or Saturday to Sunday, the Saturday to Sunday midnight, like the crossover there, that midnight until 2 a.m. Sunday is when we do the show. If you're in Australia, depending on where you live, it starts anywhere from 8 a.m. to about 11 a.m. depending on where you live, and it starts at noon in New Zealand. But we do always announce what we're doing on Twitter. So follow BTENGU, BTengu, to keep track of when the live show starts or episodes go up. Or follow us on Twitch or YouTube. That's probably the easiest way to get announcements. And of course, you can see what we're up to anytime over at our site, bluetengu.com. As always, if you did chip in a little extra for Project Spaghetti, our Season 1 game, you do have the Sapphire Key. You need to play prototypes for Project Skyring. Put one up last week after making a few tweaks, so that one's available. And of course, if you're on Steam, if you can search for Project Spaghetti and give us a vote on Steam Greenlight, we would appreciate that as well. Project Spaghetti was a very retro game, so it's hard to get through Steam Greenlight. It's a fun game, but it's a very retro look, so people are turned off by graphics and things like that. Any help you can give us would be much appreciated. But thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.